Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you please state your name for the record?
Jacqueline Joy Fakler.
Jackie, is it okay if I call you Jackie?
Mm-hmm.
How old are you?
I'm 57.
Where do you currently live?
Baldwin, North Dakota.
Could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I've got 2 adorable children, a boy and a girl, 6 adorable grandchildren. I have a hobby farm. That is my stress reliever. So I've got cattle, I've got a dog, I don't know how many cats, chickens, occasionally pigs. So I keep very busy with work and home.
You mentioned children. Are you currently married?
Yes, I still believe I am.
Has your husband passed away?
Yes.
Who was your late husband?
Robert John Fakler.
When did he pass away?
April 1st, 2019.
How long were you married to Robert for?
That would have been 33 years that year.
You mentioned that you have children. Do you have any grandchildren?
6.
Do you spend a lot of time with those grandchildren?
Yes, I tried to.
What did you and Robert like to do together before he passed away?
We like to go to Cancun every year. We'd go to Mexico every year. Most of it was the farm, friends. We like to play cards every once in a while. We like to spend time with the family. Deadwood was probably one of the places we like to go, and Medora. Medora was a trip every year with his sister and Bill and Lois.
Your Honor, I would like to approach the witness with what's been pre-marked as State's Exhibit 4. An electronic copy has already been provided to defense counsel, but for the record, I will show them that exhibit prior to approaching the witness.
You may.
Jackie, you now have what's been pre-marked as State's Exhibit number 4 in your hands. Do you recognize that item?
Yes.
What is it?
It was our last trip to Mexico two months prior to him passing away.
So is it a photo that you currently have?
Yes.
A photo of Robert?
Yes,
Who took that photo?
I did.
You mentioned that you were on vacation when you took that photo.
Yep.
Approximately how long ago was that photo taken?
It would have been in February, probably right around his birthday, on the 20th, 21st of 2019.
Did you provide a copy of that photo to law enforcement while this case was pending?
Yes.
Does that photo appear to be altered or changed in any way since you took it?
No.
The state offers Exhibit 4 into evidence.
No objection. 4 is received.
Permission to publish it to the jury, Your Honor?
You may.
So Jackie, we've just put State's Exhibit 4 up on the big screen. What do we see in that photo?
Robert with one weird-looking fish.
Did Robert like to fish?
He loved it, and we were able to take. Normally, he couldn't take me fishing because I would get seasick, or I think it was more because my diabetes. For some reason, down there, we were able to take 2 tours out on the boat to fish. So he was very happy that he got to go fishing.
Where were you when this photo was taken?
Gosh, where was that one? No, I'm sorry. We've gone to quite a few of them.
Somewhere hot, I assume?
Yeah, it was in Mexico area. Just can't remember exactly which. I'm trying to think.
That's fine.
Yes, it was in Mexico.
What other hobbies did Robert have?
His cattle was his big hobby. He wasn't much into sports. He liked to watch sports, but he didn't play sports. Fishing, camping. We used to do a lot of camping when the kids were home. That's a bit hunting. He was a hunter. He would get his stags every year and go hunting. He liked to hunt for deer, geese and duck, and pheasant.
Jackie, I'd now like to move on to talking a little bit about your business. Where do you currently work?
RJR Maintenance and Management.
What is RJR Maintenance and Management?
It's a property management.
What does the RJR stand for?
You're gonna laugh. It originally stood for Richard Joseph Riedel,
Who was that?
the prior owner to RJR.
Where is RJR located?
It's over on 32nd, 1106 32nd
You're in
Avenue in Mandan.
What position do you have at RJR?
As of right now, I am the shop supervisor.
What position did you have in spring of 2019?
I was the accountant.
What are your daily duties at RJR?
Now we're then.
You can tell us
No.
both.
Well, prior to Robert leaving, I took care of paying out, making sure all the bills were paid. I took care of all the financing for the clients and for myself. Right now, I've had to change that position because we've had to restructure. We struggled. So now I had to learn how to, I go out with the guys, I go painting, I destroy things, I build things. I've learned a lot. But I had to go and do it with them to learn it, to be able to run it. So right now I do a little bit of everything. I put up walls, I take them down. I paint, I do carpet. I've actually trained some of the guys how to do carpeting because Robert and I used to do a lot of that. So I'm working hard.
Just to clarify, you mentioned that there was some restructuring that happened. Is that because of the incident that took place
Yes.
on April 1st, 2019?
Yep.
What are the general business hours of RJR?
8 to 5.
Is that what the general business hours were back in spring 2019?
Yes.
You testified about the responsibilities of RJR. Are you currently the owner of RJR?
Yes.
Prior to April 1st, 2019, were you an owner of RJR?
I was, yes.
Were you a co-owner at that time?
Yes.
So along with Robert, I'm assuming?
Yep.
Did you and Robert start RJR from the ground up?
Yes.
When did the two of you first start the company?
We bought it in December of 2011. Opened the doors, made it public January 1st, 2012.
What were Robert's daily duties and responsibilities at RJR before he passed?
Shop manager.
What did that involve?
Keeping the guys busy, getting the guys out on calls, and doing what he had to do, what the guys couldn't do. Basically, training people. A lot of contacts with the owners and stuff.
Was there a lot of contact with his employees?
Oh yeah, daily. It was a daily meeting every day.
As both his wife and as the co-owner of RJR, how would you describe Robert's relationship with his employees?
I would say it's people respected Robert. He had an error. He was a tough individual. You got to know him. He would give you the shirt off his back. He was a very fair individual, and I believe all the employees realized that. I think they respected him a lot, and that's one thing we missed, was the respect.
When you and Robert first opened RJR, approximately how many employees did you have on staff?
What were we, around 26, 28 at that time? I can't remember. I'm sorry.
That's fine, to the best of your knowledge. How many employees do you currently have?
I want to say we're at 35 or 36 right now.
So you have grown?
Yeah, we had to.
What type of positions do your employees have?
There's multiple. We have leasing agents, we have front desk customer service, we have collections, we have accounts payable, accounts receivable, data input, we have cleaners, remodelers, maintenance, and labor. So we've got a little bit of everything. So it's a lot to keep together.
How would you describe the employees at RJR?
Then or now?
Both.
We were very close family back then. We're still a family, but I don't think we have that same bond because we're missing those people. Sorry.
It's okay.
Sorry. Sorry.
Not a problem, you're fine. Both then and now, do your employees get along with one another?
Oh yeah, when I say family, you still have the family sibling riots and stuff. So yeah, we have our disputes, but I think all around we have a fabulous team.
Do you and your employees ever get together outside of work hours?
Yeah, we do. We try to do company parties together. There's a lot of them that we, go out on a regular basis with each other. Surprisingly, there's a lot of friendships built within RJR.
Your Honor, at this time, the state is going to approach with what's been pre-marked with State's Exhibit 7. Again, a copy has been provided to defense counsel.
You may approach.
Jackie, you now have in your hands what's been pre-marked as State's Exhibit 7. Do you recognize that item?
Yep.
Is that a photo?
Yes.
What is that photo of?
The company. Every year we take one company photo, and that was the photo of the year. I'm trying to remember what year, maybe 2014.
Do you remember when that photo was taken?
Yep. I can tell you everybody that's in this picture too. I still have a few.
Does that photo appear to have been altered or changed in any way since it was taken?
No.
Did you provide a copy of that photo to law enforcement while this case was pending?
Yes.
The state offers Exhibit 7 into evidence.
No objection.
Exhibit 7 is received.
Permission to publish?
You may.
Jackie, we now have State's Exhibit 7 up on those big screens. Could you explain to the jury what exactly we see in that photo?
I see a lot of fun. To tell you the truth, it was a good group.
Who stands out to you in that photo?
There's probably half of them do. Bill, Lois, Chris, Deanna, Adam, Heather, Sam, Dawn.
Does that photo remind you of good times together?
Yes, it does.
All right, Jackie, we are going to go on to moving to the general routine that you had back in spring 2019. So back at that time, did you typically drive to work every morning with your husband, Robert?
No.
Did you drive separately?
Yes.
Did you have separate vehicles?
Yep.
Why did you typically drive separately?
Robert would go home to do the chores at 4:30, so I stayed until the business was closed at 5.
It was just easier for you to take two vehicles?
Yep.
Approximately what time would Robert leave for work each morning?
6:30 in the morning.
Approximately how long would it take for him to get to work?
Half an hour.
So he would arrive at work at approximately 7 o'clock?
Yeah, anywhere from 6:45 to 7:15, depending on traffic or if he left a little earlier.
Sure. What time would you leave for work back in spring 2019?
I was the bad child. I was the one that would come at, 7:30, 8 o'clock, sometimes 8:30. I knew my crew was there, so I wasn't that important.
Is it safe to say you would always arrive after Robert?
Yep, definitely.
Did it take you about that same time frame, about half an hour? Was
Yes.
traffic any different?
No.
You've testified that Robert typically arrived at work before you did, but was he the first person to arrive at work every morning?
No.
Who were the first employees to typically arrive at work back in spring 2019?
Bill and Lois was there every morning at 6:30.
Could you tell us a little bit more about Bill and Lois Cobb?
Where do I start? Bill was very respected by the employees, so he was Robert's right-hand man. Did everything, if not more, than what Robert did. He was a child, on the other hand. Every
All right, I obviously have a signal issue out of that courtroom in North Dakota. Let's bring in Misty Nearing and Michelle Thomas watching along here. So, so far, this is seems to be, Misty, a good prosecution witness. Your thoughts?
To pick her up because she
Oh,
was so
she's
hard on
back. We're
herself.
back. Let's go back in the courtroom.
So they both took their jobs very serious, and we had a lot of fun with them off of work also.
How long had the two of them worked for RJR?
Bill came on in 2012 or 2013, and Lois was the year after, January of 2014.
What was Lois's position at RJR?
She started out as the customer service at front desk.
What was she responsible for on a daily basis?
She was the tenants' folders, leases, phone calls, backing Deanna up on anything, assisting Deanna with everything.
So did she work solely in the office?
Yes.
What was Bill's position at RJR?
He was the supervisor, Robert's right-hand man, basically, so I call him the supervisor.
What was he responsible for on a daily basis?
He actually, the reason why he come in at 6:30 in the morning was so he could get all the work orders out, because he'd get them out to the guys every morning. He'd have time to go over with what they did the night before, the day before, so he would be freed by the time Robert got there, and they could have their coffee.
How would you describe Bill and Lois's relationship with their coworkers?
Oh, awesome. Awesome. She was everybody's sunshine, and that's what I always still think of her. And Bill was a jokester. Bill pulled pranks on people. So he would make you laugh. He would definitely make you laugh. They were fun, loving, caring individuals.
You mentioned that they both started working at RJR in that 2013-2014 timeframe. How long had you known them personally?
I didn't know them prior to this.
Were Bill and Lois married?
Yes.
Do you know how long they've been married for?
I don't know right offhand. I know it was only a few years before they came to work for us.
Did they have any children or grandchildren?
They had, at that time, they each had a son and a daughter, and then they had one grandson.
You've already done this a little bit for us, but how would you describe your personal relationship with the cops?
One of our best friends. I mean, we watched. They'd have to come out to the farm, because Lois loved the farm. Bill loved the farm, that's why they ended up getting a farm before they passed away. They got a cow from us, so they started their herd. I'm sad to say don't have the cow anymore. But they were out there, they helped us when we did the cattle, when we took them out to pasture, when we brought them home, when we vaccinated them. They were out there to watch The Walking Dead. They were out there to watch Hells on Wheels. So we spent a lot of time together. We went to Mexico once. We went to Medora every year. So they were our family. They were there. They knew my kids. They spent time with my kids. They were part of the family.
Your Honor, may I have permission to approach the witness with what's been pre-marked and provided to defense counsel as State's Exhibit 5?
You may.
Jackie, I've just handed you what's pre-marked as State's Exhibit 5. Do you recognize that item?
Yep.
Is that another photo?
Yep.
Who is that photo of?
Bill and Lois.
Do you know who took that photo?
I did.
When did you take that photo?
I want to say it was 2016 or 2016, I think.
Where were you guys when
We
that
were in
photo was
Mexico.
taken? Did you provide a copy of that photo to law enforcement while this
Yes.
case was pending?
Yes.
Does it appear to be altered or changed?
No.
The state offers Exhibit 5 into evidence.
No objection.
5 is received.
Permission to publish?
You may.
So Jackie, State's Exhibit 5 is now up on the screen. Who do we see in that photo?
Bill and Lois.
What stands out to you when you see that photo?
Exactly how they were after work hours. Bill was very good to Lois. He treated her like a lady. They were probably, I think, still on their honeymoon because they hadn't been married very long. Or they at least acted like they were.
They were on the honeymoon stage?
Yeah. Every time they went walking, Bill's arm went up and her arm went in. It was never any differently.
All right. So Jackie, if we take a step back, you testified earlier that Bill and Lois were typically the first employees to arrive at work in the morning. Is that right?
Yes,
Approximately what time did Bill and Lois arrive at work each morning?
about 6:30.
So did you and Robert both arrive after Bill and Lois
Yep.
typically did? How did Bill and Lois get into RJR every morning?
Side door, the employee's door with a key.
So they each had a key?
Yep.
Who else had keys to RJR?
All the maintenance guys that were on call had, well, all the maintenance guys had keys. Everybody had keys for that at that time. I want to say everybody had keys.
So every single employee who
Yeah,
worked at RJR?
now that I
or
think
just
about
the
it,
on-call?
everybody had keys at that time.
Your Honor, at this time, the state would intend to publish what's previously been accepted as State's Exhibit 2, the floor plan of RJR.
You may.
All right, Jackie, if you look at the screen behind you, we're now showing State's Exhibit 2. Do you recognize that item?
Yep,
What does that appear to be to you?
that's our building. The
Are you
RJR
able to
building.
recognize it in all of the different rooms as being RJR?
Yes.
Where is the shop area located within that photo?
The shop area is from the green area all the way to the back, which would be north of the building, I believe.
Okay, so
No.
when you say the green area, I'm
Wait.
assuming that you're referencing that green dot on the top
Yep.
right-hand side of the screen?
Yep, all the way to the back, yes.
Okay, that's the entire shop area. Where would the office area be located?
Where you see all the clutter, the
So
cluster.
if we look directly below that green circle and we have a separate square that has clearly a lot of other individual
Yep.
rooms, that would be the office area?
Yes.
Is RJR typically opened to the general public?
Just work hours. Usually 7:45, 8 o'clock, the doors open and they close exactly at 5.
When you say the doors open, what doors would be open to the general
Mm-hmm. The
public?
front door,
Where is the front door located on this floor plan?
in the front of the offices.
So would that be in the lower right-hand corner facing towards the right-hand side of the screen?
Yes.
Just to confirm, when were those doors opened every day?
Anywhere 7:45, 8 o'clock.
And that's when they would be unlocked?
Mm-hmm.
What entrance did the employees typically use at RJR?
The one
back
on
in
the one
spring
on the top of the
2019?
page is the one everybody came in.
So the top center of the screen, kind of directly below what we see labeled as RJR building blueprint?
Yep, correct.
Just so it's easier to get a record, you have to wait until the question's finished
Oh,
before
I'm
you
sorry.
answer.
Sorry.
I know it's easy to do, but in order so we can get a clear record, we just can only have one person talk at a time. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. You mentioned earlier when Bill and Lois would arrive at RJR that they would unlock the door to let themselves in, is that right?
Yes.
After they let themselves in, would they leave that door unlocked for future employees to travel in?
Yes.
All right, so again, if we think back to early 2019, was there anyone else who would arrive around that same time frame as Bill, Lois, and Robert?
Adam.
What did Adam do for RJR?
He was a remodel deck.
So what was he responsible for on a daily basis?
Basically was to turn units to get ready for re-rental.
Approximately how long had how long had Adam worked at RJR prior to April 1st, 2019?
I believe he started 2014 also.
What time would Adam typically arrive at work each morning?
In between, I'd say 6:45, 7 o'clock.
Would that depend on whether he was on call?
No, it didn't matter at all. It was that way all the time.
What type of employee was Adam?
He was a good employee. He was very loyal. He loved his job. And I think he was very grateful for his job. He always said so, which we didn't know why. But I believe it was probably one of the longest jobs he's held. So he liked it there a lot. I didn't see him leaving us in the future at all.
How would you describe Adam's relationship with his coworkers?
Oh my gosh, he was the jokester. He was fun. Very rarely would get upset about too much. People misunderstood him every time when they first met him because he had a broken finger. So they thought he'd be flipping them off. And so it was kind of a joke to everybody when we'd get a call. Hey, your employee's flipping me off. We knew right away it was Adam because he couldn't help himself because it was broken straight up. And so when he would drive, the finger was out, and it was pretty comical. He was one of our pranksters too.
Your Honor, may I have permission to approach with what's pre-marked as State's Exhibit 6 and previously provided to defense counsel?
You may.
Jackie, you now have what's been pre-marked as State's Exhibit 6. Do you recognize that item?
Yes, that's Adam.
Is that another photo of Adam? Is it a photo, Jackie?
Yes.
When did you first see that photo?
Actually, not until after they passed away. I never seen it before then.
Who did you receive that photo from?
I believe Melissa, his wife Melissa, did.
When you look at that photo, does that appear to be an accurate depiction of what Adam looked like back in spring 2019?
A little bit more gray though. But yeah.
After you received that photo, did you provide it to law enforcement?
Yes.
Does that photo again appear to be an accurate representation?
Yes.
The state offers Exhibit 6 into evidence.
No objection.
6 is received.
Permission to publish?
You may.
Jackie, we've now put State's Exhibit 6 on the big screen. Who do we see in that photo?
Adam Fuhrer. Sorry, Adam Fuhrer.
What stands out to you about that photo?
That's pretty much how he was, laid back. He loved his family, he loved camping, he loved fishing. He was a pretty laid back individual. That's all I can say is laid back.
Jackie, when that first group of employees would arrive at work back in spring 2019, what did they typically do? A typical term that you guys would use with reference to that group?
Yep, the coffee club.
So who was a part of that coffee club?
Usually Adam, Bill, and Robert.
Where was Lois during coffee club?
She was in the office because she would start working the minute she came in.
So she was the one busy at work while
Yep.
everyone was having their coffee.
Yep.
How long would they typically drink coffee and chat for?
Until everybody started slowly showing up.
After that, what would everyone do?
Usually they would discuss a few of the things that have happened or what's going to happen, and Robert and Bill made sure everybody had their work orders, and they were going to be productive for the day and send them off.
So approximately what time would everyone have that meeting and then start on their various days?
Basically everybody got there about anywhere from 7:15 to 7:45, and by 8 o'clock everybody was out the door.
All right, Jackie, so we now are going to move on to specifically talking about April 1st, 2019. Okay? Do you recall who was on call for RJR the weekend leading up to Monday, April 1st, 2019?
Yes, Adam was.
As the on-call employee, what type of responsibilities would Adam have had that weekend?
Going on emergency calls.
Had there been any changes to the morning routines leading up to April 1st, 2019?
Not that I know of.
Had anybody or any employees been out sick around that time?
Lois was.
Why was Lois out?
She had a hysterectomy.
How long had Lois been out of the office?
I want to say it was a little over a week. She came back before she was supposed to.
So approximately in connection to April 1st, when was that hysterectomy?
Oh, well, I think she was supposed to take 2 weeks off, so she probably would have been out work days, not weeks. Work days, probably 6 to 7. Work
6
days.
to 7 days prior to
Yep.
April 1st?
Yep.
When was her first day back following her
April
hysterectomy?
1st.
April 1st, 2019? When was she scheduled to return to work?
She was supposed to have that whole week off, but she didn't want to stay home anymore.
So she decided to come in early on April 1st.
Yep.
On the morning of April 1st, 2019, did you and Robert drive to work separately like you typically did?
Yes.
Was that something that was originally planned?
No, we were going to drive together that day.
Since you typically drive separately, why had you planned to drive together?
I was going to Vegas for a convention, so I didn't need a vehicle. Then last minute before we left, Robert said, hey, we've got to get the Suburban in for some repairs, so why don't you drive it in and leave it at the shop and I'll get it fixed before you get home.
So this was really just a last minute change
Yep.
based upon circumstances with the
Yep.
Suburban. What type of conference were you going to?
It was a mobile home conference.
Was it work related then?
Yep.
Where was it located?
In Vegas.
So were you going to be flying or driving down
We
to
were
Vegas?
flying.
What time did Robert leave for work that morning?
6:30.
What time did you leave for work?
Probably 7.
What time did you arrive at work?
Well, I probably left before 7. I think, and I got there about 7:20.
So you arrived at RJR on the morning of April 1st at approximately 7:20?
I'm guessing. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure on that.
What did you first observe when you pulled up to RJR on April 1st?
There was ambulance and the police cars in the parking lot.
What was your initial reaction when you saw those ambulances?
I just ran to the shop
Why did you run to the shop?
to see what was going on.
And you said you were driving, so where did you park your vehicle?
Right, pretty close to the door, actually.
So pretty close to the shop entrance
Yep.
door? You said that you then ran to the shop.
Yep,
Why were you running?
to see what was going on.
Did you go inside the shop?
Yes,
How far inside of the shop did you get?
about 10 to 20 feet.
Were you able to get any further inside the shop?
No,
What or who stopped you?
my sister-in-law grabbed me.
When she stopped you and grabbed you, what were you able to see?
I saw Robert, people trying to resuscitate Robert.
What was your immediate reaction when you saw Robert?
I believe I let out a scream. I thought he was having a heart attack, and then my decision changed on that quick when I saw what I saw.
You said that you thought he was having a heart attack.
Well, that's my first reaction because of our stress level at work.
Had he previously had a heart attack before?
No, never had.
That was just your initial gut
Yep.
reaction.
Yep.
You said that although you initially thought that it was a heart attack, that quickly changed based on what you saw.
Yep.
What did you see?
I saw blood and eggs all over the floor.
When you saw those eggs on the floor, did you realize why they were there or how they were there?
Yeah, we have chickens on the farm, and we bring eggs in to the employees all the time because we can't eat them all, so we'd bring them in and give them to the employees. So I'm sure he had a bag full of eggs.
Did you see where the blood was coming from?
No, I saw his bottom half of the body because there was, I don't know, a few responders trying to resuscitate him, so I didn't see anything really from the bottom up.
Did you see anyone else in the shop other than the first responders?
Deanna, it's the only thing I remember seeing.
So other than yourself Deanna and those first responders, no one else was inside the shop at that time that you saw?
Well, I was pretty concentrated on one area.
So just to clarify, earlier you had said that your sister-in-law was there and then you had made the statement Deanna. Are those one and the same?
Yes,
So does your sister-in-law Deanna also work at RJR?
yes.
What does she do for RJR?
She's the office supervisor.
So did she get to work before you on April 1st, 2019?
Yep, apparently she got there just a couple minutes before I did.
You said earlier that when you got into the shop, Deanna stopped you. Approximately lengthwise, how far away were you from the shop door?
10 to 20 feet, no more than 20, but not very far. Wasn't very far.
When Deanna stopped you, what did the two of you do?
I couldn't tell you. I just know I screamed.
What was running through your head at that time?
At that moment, just Robert. What was going on? What was happening? At that very moment.
Did you and Deanna eventually leave the shop area?
Yep, they asked us to leave
Who asked you to leave?
the police department.
Altogether, approximately how long were you inside that shop door?
Yeah. If it was 5 minutes, it was probably 5 minutes, not very long.
What happened when you left the shop?
Well, knowing our business, I knew there was people that could be in the building still. I noticed Bill's truck was gone, so we were trying to call Adam. Well, we were trying to call everybody. We were calling Adam, we were calling Lois, we were calling Bill. We were hoping Bill and Adam went out on a call because Bill's truck was gone, but nobody answered the phone.
When you say we, who do you mean?
Well, by that time, everybody was at work.
So at that time, there were several employees
Yep.
on scene?
Yep.
Where were all those employees located?
On or across the road from RJR.
What was the general atmosphere like outside during
Heavy,
that time?
very heavy.
What was
shock.
everyone doing?
Comforting each other. We didn't know a whole lot, but we knew it was bad.
As you were waiting, did you eventually speak with law enforcement?
Yes.
What did they tell you at that time?
Well, at that time, I think they said there was only 3. I think they said there was only 3, and it was kind of weird because they weren't sure who was Robert and who was Bill. So I'm not sure what happened there, but yeah, it sounded like they were questioning if they had the right people with the right body.
Were you eventually told how many people were located inside
Yes.
of RJR?
Yes.
Were you told who was located inside RJR?
Yes.
Who were those people?
Adam, Bill, Lois, and Robert.
After you spoke with law enforcement at the scene of the crime, what did you do next?
We went to the Snow House, which is a mobile home that we had for when we had blizzards, heavy snow. I would stay home with the animals, take care of the animals, and Robert would stay in town to clear snow. So if he had to stay overnight, we had this house to stay in.
Why did you choose to stay there rather than going back up to the farm?
Because we didn't have enough answers. We didn't have any answers at that time. We knew that there was lives lost, but we didn't have any answers really.
Did you want to be close in case anything popped
Yeah,
up?
we were waiting for the police to call us.
As you were waiting, did you have any contact with law enforcement?
Not when we went to the Snow House, not until they called for us to come down to the police department.
But they did eventually ask for you to come down?
Yep.
What happened at that time?
They had my family and Melissa's family there because the cops' families are out of town. And they let us know what happened.
We just take a step back. You mentioned that your family was there and Melissa's family is there. Who is
Yes.
Melissa?
Melissa is Adam's wife.
Okay. So Adam's family was there and your family was there. Why were the Cobb's family not there?
They all live out of state.
Did you continue to cooperate with law enforcement in the days, weeks, and months
Yes.
after April 1st?
Yes.
Did you give law enforcement officers permission to search the RJR building and collect evidence?
Yes.
Did you also give them permission to analyze surveillance video?
Yes.
On April 1st, 2019, did RJR have a video surveillance system?
Yes.
Is that what was provided to law enforcement?
Yes.
What other items did you provide to law enforcement in the months after April 1st, 2019?
Well, they took the vehicle that was taken from the lot. They also took Robert's vehicle to check the GPS system. They got all of our electronics, which would be iPads, Echoes, yeah. I can't
What
think
type
of
of
everything.
physical
Phones.
documents did you provide?
Financial,
Did you give law enforcement everything that they asked for over the course of their investigation?
yes.
During their investigation, did law enforcement also ask you about potential suspects?
No, no. They asked if I would know of anybody, and no, I didn't.
So they did ask you that question, you just didn't have a response?
Right, I didn't know.
At that time, back in spring 2019 and the months afterwards, could you think of anyone that might have had a grudge against Robert?
No, no.
To your knowledge, had Robert ever been threatened by anyone before?
You know, there was one time when we were working the mobile home park, but it was unrelated to a resident or anything.
How long ago was that?
Probably 20, 25 years ago.
And nothing ever came of that?
Right, correct.
Speaking of threats, did anyone at RJR carry handguns or personal weapons?
Yes.
Who did?
Robert, Bill, Lois, I, and Chris.
That seems like a good number of people. Why did they carry those personal items?
Boys and their toys? No. No, they didn't carry them on them personally. Usually they were in their vehicles. They didn't carry it on them. Lois's was in her purse. Mine would either be in my vehicle or in my purse. So we didn't carry them on our person, per se.
So back in spring 2019, did any of those employees who carried personal handguns fear for their safety at all?
No.
To your knowledge, had any of those personal defense weapons ever been used in an RGR-related incident?
No.
All right, Jackie, so there are a few other odds and ends that we need to discuss. So first, we do need to talk about the defendant. Do you know the defendant, Chad Isaak?
No.
Have you ever met him before?
I believe at the meet and greet that we had at the mobile home park.
You mentioned a meet and greet, so when did that take place?
I'm terrible at dates.
Was it prior to April 1st, 2019?
Yes, it was. We acquired that the year before. So I would believe it was probably in the spring or fall of the year before, 2018.
Okay, so spring 2018?
Yeah,
Roughly?
possible.
What was that meet and greet for?
Just to let the residents get to know us a little bit, and because people usually feel threatened when new people come in town and they don't know you, and with our business you get good vibes and bad vibes, and we try to make people comfortable with us as a group.
So it's an opportunity for employees of RJR to meet tenants?
Yep.
Was that meet and greet for one specific trailer park or location, or for all of your properties?
No, just for one, the Northview Mobile Home Park.
You
The
mentioned
States.
that.
Yeah, I'm
You
sorry.
mentioned that the defendant was there. Is that because he was a tenant of that trailer park?
Yes, yes, he owns his own house.
So he lived at one of your properties?
Yep. Sorry, not my properties.
One of RJR's properties. Going back to that meet and greet, were Robert, Bill, Lois, or Adam present there?
No.
To your knowledge, had Robert, Bill, Lois, or Adam ever met the defendant?
I believe Robert met the defendant, yes.
When do you believe Robert met the defendant?
That fall, probably.
That fall, is that the fall prior to
Yep.
April
Yeah.
2019?
I believe, yep, it would probably have been the fall of 2018. I'm not good at dates, so I do apologize.
That's fine.
I could be a year off even.
Why did Robert meet the defendant in fall 2018?
He used to move snow in the cul-de-sac that he lived in, and Robert wanted to go up there and visit with him and see if it was something he was still interested in doing, and if he was, that he would pay him to do so.
So just to clarify, at that time frame, was there a change in the management of the defendant's trailer park?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So you had, or RJR had acquired that trailer park.
Yep.
And prior to RJR being the managers, is that when this snow removal happened?
Yeah, prior to us. Yep.
Did the defendant continue removing snow once RJR became the new management?
No.
Why not?
We're not sure. He never said that he would do it or not, so we just left it at that.
Had he wanted to, would you have continued allowing the
Oh yeah,
defendant to remove snow?
definitely.
Would that have been a benefit to RJR?
Oh, definitely. Big benefit, less work that we would have to do if somebody else wanted to take care of it.
Given your position at RJR, do you have access to the leasing paperwork and rent information for all of RJR tenants?
Yes.
To your knowledge, did the defendant regularly pay his rent?
Yeah, he was early every month. Paid before the 1st.
Did he have any special arrangements or accommodations associated with his lease?
I do believe, but I'm not 100% sure because it's been 2.5 years, that he might have had his paperwork for his dog accommodations. Other than that, I mean, it was a pretty normal lease that he had.
Are you aware, do you recall what type of dog the defendant had?
So I believe it's a brown, big dog that he had. A very adorable dog.
To your knowledge, did any problems or concerns arise with the defendant's pet?
No, no,
Did you have any issues whatsoever with him owning a dog and having it in one of your properties?
no.
Was there any particular reason that you had a pet accommodation set up through RJR?
The owners wanted a pet policy, and they didn't want the pets, the larger dogs especially. But yeah, they wanted, they had to have accommodation paperwork to have pets in the park.
So was that something that had been with management prior to RJR taking over?
I don't believe so, no.
Okay. So let's shift into talking a little bit about finances. As of April 2019, had RJR experienced any type of financial hardship?
No,
Did RJR have any outstanding business loans?
no,
Any outstanding financial obligations?
no,
Did RJR have any problems with payroll or compensating their employees?
no.
Back in March or April 2019, were there any financially driven motives or reasons to target RJR?
Not that, no, I don't think so.
You mentioned this briefly. When Robert passed away, did you become the sole owner of RJR?
Yes.
What assets did you inherit when you became the sole owner of RJR?
The business and the farm.
What type of responsibilities did you inherit?
A headache.
Why do you say a headache?
I work twice as hard. I don't have a life anymore. I don't have dreams. I don't have Robert. So yeah. My life changed dramatically. Yeah, big time.
Did you ever want to be the sole owner of RJR?
No.
Aside from inheriting the business, what financial benefits did you receive following Robert's death?
There was a life insurance policy.
Did you make any significant changes to your daily life based upon those assets that you received?
No,
Did you buy a new house?
no,
Did you buy a new car?
no.
What negative consequences did you have when Robert passed away?
Like I said, media kind of had fun. So it was emotional. It's been an emotional roller coaster ride for 2.5 years.
What do you mean when you say the media had fun?
Well, they don't know the facts. They don't know the facts, and so it's hard when you see stuff being put out there that's not correct, and can't do anything about it.
Let's also spend some time discussing RJR conflicts. Do conflicts sometimes arise amongst RJR employees?
Oh yeah, every once in a while.
How are those conflicts handled?
Usually amongst themselves, because they're usually not that big of a deal. If it's a big deal, we usually will, either Deanna, I, or at that time Robert would have a sit down with the individuals that would have conflict, but that very rarely happened. It was worked out by themselves.
Have you ever had an employee conflict become so significant that someone had to be terminated or let go?
No.
Have you ever had an employee conflict turn threatening or violent?
No.
Then moving on to your tenants, do tenants contact RJR regarding conflicts or complaints?
Yes.
What type of complaints do you typically receive?
Well, maintenance that has to be done, maintenance that wasn't done or wasn't done properly, neighbors disputes is probably 50% of it. Dispute on their security deposit refunds, or, you know, that they don't like having to pay fees if they're not following their lease. Pretty much those are the conflict.
Approximately how many complaints from tenants do you receive on a daily basis?
On a daily basis, if one, if even that.
How does your office handle those complaints?
Usually the front desk customer service, if they can't handle it, it goes to Deanna, the office manager, and if she can't handle it, it would go to Robert or I.
Have you ever had a tenant complaint turn violent or threatening?
No.
When you think of RJR as a whole prior to April 1st, 2019, had RJR ever received a direct threat of violence?
No.
What about you personally? Prior to April 1st, 2019, had you ever directly been given a threat of personal violence?
No.
Turning on to your employees, to your knowledge, prior to April 1st, had any employee received a direct threat of violence?
No.
All right, Jackie, so there is one more thing that we need to discuss today, which I know we would both prefer not to have to do in an open courtroom. Prior to April 2019, were you aware that your husband was having an affair?
No.
Did you ever wonder if Robert was having an affair?
No.
Did he ever act or behave in a way that made you think he was having an affair?
No.
Did you ever talk about how you would react or respond if you found out that Robert was having an affair?
Yeah, I would joke about it.
Why would you joke about something like that?
Because I would take everything if he had an affair on me. And he would lose everything. I would go after everything.
Did you ever make a statement saying that you would kill Robert if he ever cheated on you?
No.
Did law enforcement ask you about that?
Yes. Yes.
Why did law enforcement ask you about that?
I believe it's a testimony or something of somebody. I'm not.
Okay.
You gotta remember, I was in a daze for a good 6 months.
So law enforcement asked you if you had ever made a threat
Yep.
like that?
Yeah. I do remember them asking.
Do you remember how you responded to law enforcement?
That I don't recall that ever happening.
to this date, after you've spoken to law enforcement and after a significant number of months have passed, do you now recall ever making that statement?
No, I don't. I don't take that lightly.
When did you learn that Robert was having an affair?
April 30th, April 30th, 2019, sorry.
Why do you remember that specific date?
Because it was the second worst day of my life.
When was the first worst day of your life?
April 1st.
Who told you about that affair?
Patton. Detective Patton, Detective Joe.
Were those some of the investigators in this case?
Yes.
How did you react when they told you about that affair?
Totally in denial. I still have a hard time believing it.
What emotions were you feeling?
Well, denial and anger.
Did law enforcement tell you who Robert was having an affair with?
Yes.
Who was he having an affair
Lisa Nelson, I'm sorry.
with? Did you recognize the name Lisa
Yes.
Nelson? How did you know Lisa Nelson?
She was a resident for years. She kind of followed us from Twin City to RJR.
Approximately how long had you known her for?
15 to 16 years is what I want to say, but I'm not 100% sure on that. I can't remember when she first bought a home from us.
How did you feel when you found out not only that Robert had been having an affair, but that he had been having an affair with somebody that you knew?
I think whether it was somebody I knew or not, it would have not have been good. But yeah, especially this individual that had problems of her own, would never thought she would have put somebody through that.
Despite having learned about this affair, did that change how you felt about Robert?
At first I was very angry, I was very mad, but to get through it, I had to remember how I felt for him because I didn't have him to ask how he felt about me.
And how had you felt about him?
He was my soulmate.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Quick, you're doing the cross-exam? You can cross-exam. I don't know how long it's going to be. We'll try to recess around 10 or 10:05 if there's a convenient time. If you're still going, if you could find a convenient time to break.
Very good. Thank
You
you.
may cross-examine.
Thank you. Mrs. Fakler, let's talk a little bit about the company. You had mentioned a previous company called Twin City. What was
Yep.
that?
It was a mobile home park.
And was that something you and Robert owned previous to RJR?
No, we don't own any of that stuff.
Okay.
I wish. No, we managed it for, probably 15, 16 years, 17 even maybe.
And is that in Bismarck, Mandan as well?
Yep.
And how large a park was this?
Well, we had Twin City and Wildwood. Wildwood was 70 some, and I think Twin City was 100 and, it's been 10 years since I've worked there. It was over 100, so it wasn't 200.
So you had
couldn't
two
tell you.
parks that you and Robert
Yes.
managed. Did you have employees for that business as well?
Yes, we did.
And so you didn't own those parks?
No.
Were they owned by individual owners separately?
The parks were owned by a corporation. The lots, the mobile homes themselves were, most of them were homeowners.
Okay. And then you kind of moved into the RJR business, which expanded beyond mobile homes to other rental properties, correct?
Yep.
And you initially were with another owner, correct? RJR was, you had a co-owner.
Yes. It was, yep.
And that was the person whose initials you kept after that owner
Yep.
left. So initially, was it a three-way operation, or was it a 50-50 Faulkner and this other fellow?
No, it was, Shane Gross was also a partner in
Okay,
the beginning.
so there were four owners of...
No, 3. Richard Riedel, we bought it from Richard Riedel.
I see.
He never owned it after we bought it.
So you just kept the initials?
Yep.
And he was out of there, and there were 3 owners, and were the 3 owners, Mr. Gross and you and And Robert, were you co-owners, or was it 50/50 with Mr. Gross?
It was, no, he was 25% and Robert and I were 33.5% each. So we co-owners, yes.
Okay, and at some point, you bought him out or he left?
Yep, he was tired of it and wanted out, so we bought him out.
And so when did you own it solely, you and Robert? Was that the 2012 date, or was it
I want to
after
say
that?
it was 2015 that Shane left.
Okay, so from 2015 through the present time, or through 2019, you and Robert owned it alone.
Yep.
And when you started with RJR, my understanding is you just had a few employees and a few rental units, correct?
Yes.
Do you remember how many employees you would have had back in 2012?
I want to say there was 3 employees plus the 3 owners, and then 297 units.
Okay, so roughly 300 units and 3-4
Yep.
employees, plus you were obviously working as well.
Again, you can only talk one at a time. You're answering in the middle of the question, and I know it's easy to do when you anticipate the
Sorry.
answer, but just so we can get a clean record, if you could just hold off answering and let Mr. Quick finish his question. Thank you.
And so ultimately, from 2014 or 15, or maybe 2012, when you had the 3-4 employees and less than 300 units, you ultimately grew to something substantially larger, correct?
Yes.
And in 2019, you would had over 30 employees and 3,000 units, something like that?
Yes.
And currently, you have even more employees than that?
Yes.
And then how many more units do you have today?
We're probably the same or down a little bit because we did lose business because of this.
But you still have roughly 3,000 units or something?
Yeah, and we've had to grow the employees because I lost key people.
Sure. So tell me how many owners you would have to work with for 3,000 units, if you have a rough number.
It's over 100.
And so you don't own any of these properties at all?
No.
And so you have to deal with owners that have expectations,
Yes.
and they don't want the headaches of the maintenance or the collecting of the rent or the
Correct.
accounts receivable or all of the headaches that comes with rental property, correct?
Correct.
And so that's where you come in.
Yes.
And looking at the photographs of the RJR building, it looks like a very nice new upscale building. Is that true?
Yes.
And when did you buy that or build that building?
2017.
And my understanding is that Robert's sister, Deanna Finney, is an owner in the building.
Yes.
Is she a equal owner with you now?
I got Robert's shares, so it's 33 and it's 33 or something like that.
Okay, so she's a third owner essentially. But she's not an owner of RJR at all.
No.
Okay. And what is or are Deanna's duties?
Office manager.
Does she still work there?
Yes.
And she's there full-time?
Yes.
Okay.
She goes home 1 week out of the month.
Where's home?
Arizona.
Okay, so she has a home in Arizona plus a residence here as well?
Yes.
And we talked a little bit about the Cobbs who started working there in 2014 or 2015. They actually lived out in the country, is that true?
Yes.
I'm not sure Judson is in the country or that's a town, but it's near Judson, North Dakota?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Near Judson?
Yes.
Okay. And they would drive back and forth in a RJR vehicle generally,
Yes.
and that would be owned by your company essentially.
Yes.
Now, when you were interviewed by law enforcement multiple times, especially in the early days and subsequently, they asked you a lot of questions about evictions and things of that nature. Is that true?
Yes.
And how many evictions does RJR generally do?
Oh gosh, that's tough. I'd say right now maybe 4 to 5 a month. Back then, it depends on the economy at the time. Sometimes
Sure.
we've got 20, sometimes we got 1. I couldn't give you a definite answer on that, sorry.
Back in the day, geez, when you were interviewed back in, right after this incident occurred by Detective Haug, I think you talked to him, Detective Pat, or and/or BCI agent, you gave some numbers, is that true?
I might have, yes.
And the report here says approximately 5 to 6 evictions per month. Would that have been accurate in 2019?
Very possible, yes.
Okay. And the evictions will occur for what reason? Could be more than one reason.
Non-payment normally.
Okay. And how do you go through the eviction process? Is that a lawsuit?
No, it's a 3-day intent to evict. They have 3 days to respond to us, make arrangements. If they don't make arrangements or don't contact us, then we usually follow through with going to court to evict them from the property.
Okay. So there is a statutory process, or I should say a process by law, where you give them a document called Notice of Intent to Evict.
Correct,
And then they're given so many days to respond.
correct.
And some will just leave at that point.
Yeah,
If they leave at that point and there's a damage to the property in excess of what I assume would be a damage deposit, do you then sue them for the excess damage?
normally the security deposit would be minus off of that, and then we put it into collections, correct?
So you would have lawsuits to collect for damaged property sometimes.
Yeah,
And then in addition to that, you would also have these evictions that you would have to follow through with if they don't accept the notice of eviction.
Your Honor, I would object to this line of questioning. I do believe defense counsel is testifying rather than asking a question of the witness.
That's called the leading. It's, I think, thank you. The question was, you would have to go to court for those that didn't accept the notice of eviction, correct?
yes,
And then there would be a lawsuit where somebody would have to testify on behalf of RJR, and presumably the tenant would show up on the other side, correct?
when we'd go to court, yes.
And who handled the evictions primarily?
Robert did.
And when this case was happened, and you were looking for possible suspects, didn't you or your staff give law enforcement a list of the pending lawsuits?
My staff probably did, yes.
Is that something that you would maintain regularly?
No. No, I mean, we have such a busy lifestyle, to try to keep everything on track all the time would be impossible. So we would have had to look through our system to pull those.
But they were pulled pretty quickly, were they not?
Deanna's very, very good on the computer, sorry.
And you literally gave a list to law enforcement within a day or two of 55 lawsuits that were pending as of April 2nd, 2019?
I could not tell you if that's correct or not. I did not turn those over.
Would that be something that Deanna Finney would know?
Yes.
Then you talked a little bit about animal agreements and that sort of thing. So when you take on the responsibility of doing maintenance for an owner, what goes into that process? Is there a negotiation in terms of what you're going to charge, expectations from the owner, that sort of thing?
Yes, we have a contract with the owners. It's usually, there's a management fee for collecting of rents, any of the office work, dealing with the residents, renting the units, going to court if we have to go to court. So there's a lot that's included with the management fee. On the other hand, maintenance, we charge an hourly rate for maintenance, cleaning, snow removal, and lawn care. So that is separate.
All right, obviously lost our signal momentarily. I'm sure we'll get it back in just a bit. The questioning here on cross-examination, he hasn't gotten to the affair because in opening statements, well, let's go back in and we'll keep our ears open for the questioning about the affair from her husband, Robert.
For people, we might do advertisement fees, but that's about it.
And I assume it makes a difference if it's a trailer park where they own their own home.
Again, a little spotty out of North Dakota this morning with our signal out of that courtroom. Let's bring in our guest. Misty Nearing is with us, along with Jeffrey Wolf, who's joining us from Denver. Misty, the big question coming up, I'm sure, is going to be the cross on this affair. The direct went pretty well. What'd you think?
You know what? We clearly have on both sides two very skilled litigators. The prosecutor in this particular case did a fantastic job of laying out the foundation, guiding her witness through. Clearly, we have a woman who has lost her husband, and she is very emotional. And as far as kind of tackling some of the things we saw in the defense statement, the prosecution did well. But what's interesting is on the other side with the defense attorney, he's just getting started, but his tone is appropriate. It's a casual conversation. He's able to kind of paint his picture. Mm-hmm. So both sides are doing quite well in presenting their various sides.
We've got the signal back. Let's go back in.
Correct.
Yes.
And the previous...
Not new to us.
Okay.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. So you had worked with Rolf Eggers before.
Yes.
And so how many properties had you worked with Mr. Eggers on before?
Oh, he's got probably about 30.
Okay, so he had about 30 properties, and then he purchased this trailer park in Washburn.
Yes.
And this was purchased from two fellows that lived up there, or I'm not sure where they lived, but ran it themselves.
Yes.
They didn't hire a management company.
Correct.
And because this was a little bit unique in that it had the additional RVs, this was an opportunity for you folks, correct?
Everything's an opportunity.
Okay. My understanding, and one of the reasons you did this meet the managers situation, is because this was a little bit different because of the RV element. Is that true?
No.
You would have done it anyway?
No, we've done meet and greets before.
Okay. And the purpose of the meet and greet is to answer any questions.
Yes.
And in this case, the rents didn't change from previous ownership.
No.
Nothing really changed other than Mr. Eggers wanted some sort of animal agreement.
Correct.
Did you draft your own agreement, or is that something he drafted?
I believe, I think we went with a generic one we already had.
Okay, so some of the other owners had animal agreements as well. And as part of that animal agreement, it's signed by the tenant and somebody from RJ Management.
Correct.
And it says on this agreement, the type of dog,
Yes.
the size of the dog,
Yes.
name of the dog.
Your Honor, I would object. Going back to direct examination, the witness did testify that she had never seen this document. So I just want to clarify that.
Overruled. I'll allow the question.
Well, let me back up. It's my understanding that you have tenant agreements on a lot of the tenants, correct?
Correct.
And they're kept specifically to a person's name, correct?
Yes.
And in that tenant agreement, you would have all relevant documents for each individual tenant, correct?
Correct.
And in this case, the animal agreement would be a relevant document, correct?
Yes.
Your letters to all of the tenants in 2018, advising them that RJR was now taking over the property would be in there, correct?
Right.
And you had them fill out a tenant information form where they gave you phone numbers and things of that nature, correct?
Correct.
You also would have in that tenant file an option where they could pay their rent online.
Yes.
And also in that tenant file would be a ledger showing their payments, correct?
Yes.
And in Dr. Isaac's tenant file, you would also have the earlier rental agreement that he even had from 2012, is that?
Yes.
And so that is a document that you have seen before and is maintained in your office, correct?
It's maintained in my office, but like I said, I was the accountant. I was the one paying bills and stuff. I wasn't taking care of the residents.
All right. So you'd rather have us introduce these documents through Miss Finney or Mr. Pace?
Yeah, yes. I can't answer you properly.
Okay. Another document that was provided to law enforcement in the early days after April 1st was a list of people that were evicted that were really upset. Do you know anything about that particular list?
No, can I see it?
I'm certainly happy to show it to you. If I can approach, Judge.
May I see a copy of what's being brought up?
Some of the names I recognize because we would visit about them. But yeah, I wasn't.
Jack, this is not responsive. There has been a
Oh,
question.
okay.
I'm sorry, I came back here because I think we need to make a record with the microphone.
Okay.
That document was given to somebody in law enforcement from somebody on your staff. Is that a document you've seen before?
Your Honor, again, there's not a question. I don't
I'm
believe this
asking a
witness has ever
question.
seen this document.
He just asked the question. Overruled.
I may or I may have not. I do not remember. Like
Okay,
I said, in those days, I was in a fog.
okay. So you don't know the people on that list necessarily, but you said you did recognize
few.
some? Okay.
A few.
And you didn't provide that list specifically to law enforcement,
No.
but somebody in your office staff did?
Yes.
And who would that have been?
Either Deanna or Shelby. It looks like you have Shelby's signature on there.
Okay. I can retrieve the document, Judge. I do have a few more questions, Judge, if you want to take a break or you want me to plow ahead.
Be a convenient time to break.
It would.
Okay. We'll recess for 20 minutes. As indicated, it works a little bit, or I think take one longer recess during each session. So please heed the admonition, do not discuss the case amongst yourselves or with anyone else. Do not form or express any opinions about the case until it is given to you for your determination. We'll be in recess for 20 minutes, which will take us to about 10:15. So please be back ready to work at that time. Thank you.
All right, break in the courtroom. We'll do the same. Be back right after this. Stay with us. Top hour, welcome back to Court TV Live at our continuing coverage of the state of North Dakota versus Chad Isaak, the chiropractor who was accused of quadruple murder back in 2019 at a property management company. On the stand this morning is the widow of one of the victims in that mass shooting. She is now the owner of RJR Property Management. Her husband, Robert, and her managed the company before his death in 2019. She talked extensively about their relationship, that the employees had with her, and the relationship that her employees had with her late husband, Robert.
As both his wife and as the co-owner of RJR, how would you describe Robert's relationship with his employees?
I would say it's people respected Robert. He had an air. He was a tough individual. You got to know him. He would give you the shirt off his back. He was a very fair individual, and I believe all the employees realized that. I think they respected him a lot, and that's one thing we missed was the respect.
When you and Robert first opened RJR, approximately how many employees did you have on staff?
We were around 26, 28 at that time. I can't remember. I'm sorry.
That's fine, to the best of your knowledge. How many employees do you currently have?
I want to say we're at 35 or 36 right now.
So you have grown?
Yeah, we had to.
How would you describe the employees at RJR?
Then or now?
Both.
We were very close family back then. We're still a family, but I don't think we have that same bond because we're missing those people. Sorry.
It's okay.
Sorry.
Both then and now, do your employees get along with one another?
Oh yeah, when I say family, you still have the family sibling riots and stuff. So yeah, we have our disputes, but I think all around, we have a fabulous team.
Do you and your employees ever get together outside of work hours?
Yeah, we do. We try to do company parties together. There's a lot of them that we, go out on a regular basis with each other. Surprisingly, there's a lot of friendships built within RJR.
With us this morning, Misty Nearing is in Williston, North Dakota. Also joining us, Jeffrey Wolf from Denver, Colorado, both criminal defense attorneys. All right, Misty, let's sum it up. So far, the state has had direct. We've gone into some of the cross, but much more ahead. Your thoughts on this witness and the effectiveness of both direct and now the beginning of cross?
The prosecution has done a good job in allowing her to tell her story. She's clearly emotional. I think she comes across as being very credible. But at the same time, looking at where the defense is going and trying to predict based off of their opening statement what we're looking at, it's not quite over yet. I think it's going to be interesting to see how certain things go. The one flaw I do foresee coming in a cross-examination is that while you can allege an allegation that, she may have been more involved, the big question for the defense is going to be the how. This was a brutal attack. You had the use of multiple stab wounds. You had the use of gun. She clearly has inside information as to the schedules of these people, and there doesn't appear to be a motive against any of the other three victims. And so it's one thing to just make the suggestion that somebody may have had something to do with it, but unless the defense can actually either try to impeach her or to try to figure out more of that way, or at least propose a different theory, it's kind of one of those things. I don't know whether or not it's going to hold any water. And then, of course, you have the second line of questioning about, this being a property management and the potential for disputes here. But it'll be interesting to see where it goes. I think that both sides are doing their best, and they're clearly presenting a good argument, and they're very skilled, at least, at presenting that picture. But this witness is definitely credible. She's emotional, at least with her direct in the right places. She is presenting very well. And so it'll be interesting to see how things develop through this further cross-examination, and when these sensitive topics come up, how does that change?
Jeffrey, in the openings, the defense said that, hey, this affair that Robert was having, maybe his wife Jackie could have hired somebody maybe to, kill everybody because she was mad. The problem with that theory, of course, is that now that we've met Jackie, to Misty's point, I'm not buying that she's the mastermind behind this quadruple murder. And now that you've promised it in the open, how do you go there now with this jury without offending them? I think the other side of the coin, that they are accomplishing that this can be a nasty business, and they're getting that out of Jackie. But Jeffrey Wolf, how do you get the other part of this that you promised in your open out of this witness without coming across as being callous?
Right, because you never want to write a check in your opening that your evidence is not going to cash, right? Because a jury is going to expect you to keep those promises. And so when you make that kind of an allegation in opening, you now have set yourself up to hope that the witness is going to give it to you. And I agree with Missy. I think she definitely presented very well with her emotions in the appropriate times, and then even being able to laugh at good memories with these people. I think it gives her a sense of credibility. However, I think what they're trying to do is they, number one, appear to be pivoting a little bit to the business and the different people that they came into contact with, because after all, they are managing a trailer park with hundreds of residents. And so there's no way of knowing what these other people could have been into or the kinds of conflicts that could have come up. And it doesn't seem like there is any sort of why there with the defendant either. And so I think what they're showing is that the prosecution is going forward on somebody that they have no why with, and showing that they didn't investigate quite enough the people that they maybe did have a why with, or looked into somebody that did have a why. And that's what they're doing. And the other thing that you should never discount is the defense attorney's ability to flip somebody in a moment. They are going to question her and hope that at some point she gets angry, because then it kind of washes away the facade of a very sympathetic witness. I've done it. I've seen other skilled attorneys do it. It is something that absolutely can be done. And so taking a break, letting her collect herself, feel comfortable, coming back and maybe hitting a little bit harder and seeing what could come from that, don't count him out just yet.
Yeah, Bruce Quick, obviously a skilled attorney with some experience on his side. Misty, the other part, or the other potential strategy here is don't go into it much. You know, one question about it, just to sort of throw it out there in a way of like, could the affair have elicited something else, or push it away from her, but bring it up once and then forget it, because you've established it with the open. Or maybe, as Jeffrey said, maybe they've got a plan to go at her and try to hit the other side of her, which they may believe she has.
Well, I think the one flaw that will probably come up, depending on how much time they're going to spend on this topic of this affair, is, at least from what I noticed with her direct, is that according to her testimony, she didn't have any prior knowledge of this affair until after, about approximately 30 days after it happened. And if that is true, and the defense doesn't have anything to contradict that, that would actually kind of undermine the credibility of that type of thing. So we'll see kind of how things develop, whether or not the defense has more of a strategy toward that point, or whether they end up doing a pivot point and kind of focusing on just the ugly nature of the business.
Yeah, and Jeffrey, to that point, she was pretty clear. April 30th was the day she found out about the affair, and the second worst day of her life. I mean, that was gripping, because you could see the pain that she was reliving of finding out that her deceased husband had in fact been having an affair with someone she knew, this Lisa Nelson. I just, it's going to be interesting to see, is this almost, and again, to your point, there's a break here. The witness gets to collect herself, but the defense team also gets to powwow as well.
Right, absolutely. And the bottom line is, she is presenting very well, but this is a woman who is running a mobile home park. She is not a wallflower. I have a very, very, very difficult time believing that she doesn't have a tough side to her that is not coming out in this testimony, either because she's genuinely very sad about this incident, or because there's a bit of overacting going on here. It is very, very hard to believe that somebody could be as successful running these types of businesses and these types of residences without having the ability to stand up and have a backbone. My grandfather ran a motel and a self-storage unit, and he was a very nice grandfather, but he could be tough with his tenants, and I'm sure she could as well. And so at some point, the defense has got to crack the soft shell that she has, right? We always think of it the other way. She's got a soft shell on. There is a hard interior there. It has to be there. She would not be able to do this job without it.
Yeah, and I think, Misty, it's evidence that she does have a hard interior on some level because of the nature of her work, right? And now she's running the whole thing. Getting down to that would help achieve the goal of expressing to this jury that this is a tough business, right? You want that character Louis De Palma from Taxi to come out, right? But because she is really the person that is navigating a lot of personalities, a lot of people. We may see that. Is that necessary?
It's kind of one of those things. I completely agree. There's got to be a tough exterior here. I mean, you have a woman who has had difficult circumstances, and she has strove to persevere to get through them, and she's taken on this entire role. And if she has that capability, it's logical to think that she's got to learn how to say appropriate boundaries, yes or no. So I mean, I'm certain we all have dualities in our personality, so there has to be a tough side there. Now, what'll be interesting to see is if during the cross, if the criminal defense attorney Quick here can actually trigger some of that anger and some of that emotion, because what I've noticed in a courtroom is that you can have somebody present one way during a direct examination, but then during cross, when you hit that nerve, sometimes their inner personality kind of comes out, or a different side of them comes out. And so it's going to come down to, how much the defense actually has as far as using it for leverage, and, how well prepared this witness is for dealing with some of these tougher questions that come out.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're also seeing a little bit of that play out between the attorneys. A couple of the objections Quick didn't like. He was turning and he got thrown off his game there a little bit too. We'll see. Now, Jackie Fakler has kept that soft exterior. And one of the questions asked to her was about the other victims and the fact that they even traveled with the couple. She really did connect, I would argue, with this jury when she talked about them, which would lead you to believe there's no way she would say yes to a quadruple murder or set up some sort of hit where those people also would be in harm's way. Take a listen.
How would you describe your personal relationship with the cops?
One of our best friends. I mean, we watched. They'd have to come out to the farm because Lois loved the farm. Bill loved the farm. That's why they ended up getting a farm before they passed away. They got a cow from us, so they started their herd. I'm sad to say don't have the cow anymore. But they were out there. They helped us when we did the cattle, when we took them out to pasture, when we brought them home, when we vaccinated them. They were out there to watch The Walking Dead. They were out there to watch Hells on Wheels. So we spent a lot of time together. We went to Mexico once. We went to Medora every year. So they were they were our family. They were there. They knew my kids. They spent time with my kids. They were part of the family.
Jeffrey Wolf, it's hard to believe that this woman organized a hit to whack everybody involved here, including her husband that may have been having an affair. Well, I guess he was having an affair. She may not even have known about it. It doesn't make sense, and it won't make sense to jurors, will it?
Well, I think it doesn't make sense if you think about a hit in the most Hollywood sense of the word, right? You hire a professional hitman, you tell them what time to be there, you make the plan, you know the plan, everybody sticks to the plan. But what we see when we see these murder for hire cases that actually get charged is we see that really what it is you just hire a local tough. And then the local tough does whatever the local tough's going to do, and usually something goes wrong, which is why people get caught, right? And so it is not inconceivable to think that somebody who runs a trailer park could not meet a local tough guy, hire said local tough guy, and have him decide that early morning is the time that works for him. And little does he know that two of her best friends are also there, and then this, fourth, handyman type guy as well. And so that's something that needs to start getting communicated as well. I don't know if they have some type of witness to talk about what a hit actually looks like in real life, because it's very rarely somebody coming in with a silencer and night vision goggles and getting the right person between the eyes. That's just not how it works.
Yeah. Misty Nearing, thank you for your time this morning and your expertise. We really appreciate it. We're going to take a break right now. Jeffrey's going to stay with us. We're still waiting for the jury to come back on their mid-morning break. As soon as they're back and the judge is back, we'll get you into the courtroom for more live testimony. Stay with us.
Today. It doesn't matter if I thought he was guilty or not.
I was the worst fugitive the world has ever met.
With the jury, find the defendant, Robert Durst, not guilty.
Robert Durst was featured in the HBO docuseries The Jinx.
He's been a national obsession.
This case is stranger than fiction.
Why'd you do it? If I tell you what I know, what can you possibly do for me?
Welcome back. The judge is back, the jury is back, and Jackie Fakler just went back into the witness chair for more cross-examination. We'll get you in live now.
April 1st, you had been scheduled to go to Las Vegas for a convention,
Yes.
and you made the comment that we were flying. Who was going with you?
Ben Pace?
And he's the marketing director?
Yes.
And when you arrived 7:30, whatever the time was on April 1st, you indicated that you could see the rescue vehicles and law enforcement vehicles already present.
Yes.
And you went into the shop quite a ways and unfortunately saw Robert lying there being attended to by a number of people, correct?
Yes.
Do you have any idea how many rescue people and police officers were there at that time?
I couldn't give you an honest answer. I know there was a few with Robert, but to give you a total, I could not answer that.
Okay. And you said that his sister-in-law, your sister-in-law, Deanna Finney, was in there as well
Yes,
and was watching what was going on, correct?
yes.
Was Justin Bachheim in there at that point or not?
He may or may not have been. Like I said, I had one thing on my,
I understand. And at some point, you had one of the employees, Jason Kraus, go fill up your car with gas, and he had a lunch pail or something inside there. Do you know that?
I heard about it, but I didn't see it or have any packages.
Was Jason inside the building when you were there?
That's to my understanding. I don't, like I said, I don't know. When I saw Robert, that's all I saw.
Okay. Kyle Hagan, was he inside at that time, or don't you know?
I don't know.
Okay. Now, it's my understanding from your testimony that Robert, to your knowledge, had only met Dr. Isaak on one occasion,
Correct.
and that was to talk about snow removal and just a brief handshake introduction.
Yes.
And I think you said that he had
Well, we obviously have lost the audio portion of our feed from the,
now on some of these
Oh, there it is, back.
outlying properties, in this one way up in Washburn, you would assigned somebody the responsibility of responding to tenant complaints?
It is usually front desk's responsibility and the office.
But I mean, if somebody had to physically drive there, you would have somebody responsible for doing that?
On the majority of the bases, everything was handled on the phone, not, we had, Robert would go out there and Don would go out there.
Okay. There were some work orders in the file suggesting that Don Eliason had been up there on 3 occasions since you took over the property. Would that be correct?
Yes,
And so he did have some responsibility for checking out the park?
yes,
And there were only 3 work orders in the entire time that RJR managed this park?
very possible.
Okay.
Like his most of it's homeowners.
Okay. And none of it had to do with Dr. Isaak, correct?
No,
Now, you indicated that Lisa Nelson was someone you thought was a family friend, correct?
yes,
And you had made a comment on direct examination that she had had kind of a rough life.
yes.
And explain that further.
She had 2 divorces, and I don't think either one of them were very good ones, so I had compassion for her struggles.
And the second husband had a criminal history, did he not?
Yes.
And he was abusive to her?
More mentally, I believe. I don't recall her ever saying anything physically.
Do you know that she had to get a restraining order after she was divorced from him?
I believe that all had to do with what he was being charged for, and she just wanted to eliminate him from the picture.
And you had made a comment to law enforcement earlier that she had a ring, is that true?
Yeah. Yes.
Did you know where that ring came from?
Supposedly she said it was from a boyfriend.
And that would have been Robert, or don't you know?
At that time, I thought it was an imaginary friend. I'm sorry to say that.
And
But
now?
There's no way Robert bought her a ring. I did all the financing. That's not something he could have gotten past me.
Okay.
It's not, and I did. I asked her, and she said she bought it herself.
Okay. You talked about kind of the family atmosphere back in 2019, everybody having a key and the like. There was also a race car in there that Robert had purchased for people to work on. Is that
Yep.
true?
Yes.
That was kind of an employee benefit that people could work on this, and at some point, I assume it was going to race?
Correct.
And that would have been in the shop as well in April of 2019?
Correct.
And we talked about your interview on April 30th with BCI Agent Arends and Lieutenant Pat Haug, correct? When they basically told you about Robert's affair,
Yes.
and they told you they had discovered this on his phone,
Yes.
correct? And then they also confronted you with comments you had made in the presence of an employee, a former employee now by the name of Michelle.
Yes.
And I think the question that was asked of you was whether or not you ever made a threat to kill him.
No.
the question that was asked of you, that there would never be a divorce from Robert, that you would have him taken care of. Did you make that statement?
No,
Do you want to look at the transcript to refresh your
no,
recollection?
I don't need to. I know I didn't say that.
You didn't say it in the transcript?
I did not say I would ever have Robert taken care of, no.
Okay.
Is that what I said that?
I'll have you review pages 22 and 23, if you wouldn't mind. If I could approach, Judge.
You may.
Could you remind me those page numbers, please?
22
Mhm.
and 23.
Thank you.
Oh, I remember some of this.
Does reviewing that transcript of the interview refresh your recollection?
Part of it does, yes.
And they asked you specifically if you would have said the phrase that you would have him taken care of, and then you said 3 times on the next page, I probably would have said that. Yes, I've said that. I will admit to saying that.
I don't remember saying that. If that was ever said, it would have been a joke, but no, I don't recall saying not 3 times that, yes, I did, and definitely I did. No, I don't recall that.
Okay, but it is in this transcript,
Yeah,
correct?
well, I'm sorry, I don't recall it.
Okay. Anything else? You had indicated that, to your knowledge, no employees were terminated. Is that true?
No, we've had terminations, yes.
Okay. Mitch Keschel was one of them, correct?
Yes.
In fact, it wasn't that uncommon where somebody be terminated and hired back,
Correct,
and he was one of those.
correct.
We would pass, Judge. No further questions.
Redrag?
Thank you. Jackie, I know it's taking us a while back to before the break, but I do want to follow up on some things that you discussed on cross-exam. So first off, you did testify about there being several different owners of RJR over the course of the years. Mr. Quick had pointed out that there was a Mr. Gross that was involved at one time. Is that right?
Yes.
When you, Robert Fakler, and Mr. Gross were co-owners together, what was that dynamic like?
It actually started out very well.
When Mr. Gross was bought out from RJR, was that his choice?
Yes.
Why did he want to leave?
It was too stressful.
Okay. Had he actually put any money down when he joined RJR?
No.
Despite that, did you still make the decision to buy him out?
Yes.
Why did you do that?
We brought him in hoping that the relationship would have worked because he was good friends.
Okay.
We were very good friends, and we
Was-
believed for their family it was a good opportunity, and we thought by ownership he would put 110% in, and but it was too much for him. It was too stressful, and he was carrying it home, and it wasn't good for their family.
Is that why it didn't work out, so to speak, as you said?
Correct.
Mr. Quick also indicated that RJR grew to something significantly larger over the course of your involvement. Is that right?
Yes.
Despite the growth of RJR, did you still feel that you were able to adequately manage your responsibilities?
Yes.
You also mentioned that there were approximately 300 units, is that right?
When we started, correct.
Okay. After that grew even further, were you still able to manage all of those different units?
We had our ups and downs, but we managed.
Okay. Working with all of the different owners associated with
And again, we apologize, lost our audio signal, still have some of the video coming out of there. It's been spotted this morning out of North Dakota. Right now we are in the redirect examination of Jackie Fakler, who lost her husband Robert, the co-owner of RJR Property Management, back in 2019 at the time of this quadruple murder. The questioning that is being followed up on now in the redirect has to do with the business's evolution and how they were able to take it, this property management firm, from a very small holding in terms of accounts to an extremely large one. And the defense trying to bring up different points of the dangers of a property management company that are inherent in everyone, but then in this one, because of the size of it as it grew, that it could have even gotten to be a position where they had created enemies, and it all goes to the strategy of other potential suspects. Let's go back in and here the audio is back.
Because she had worked for us for quite a while, and she just wanted to be part of it. And at the time, we had separated with Shane and Rhonda. Robert and I made a pact that we don't bring anybody else in on RJR until we turn it over to the kids.
Okay.
So when the building came up, that was our opportunity. And him and her were investing prior to that. They had bought some land. They had bought rental property. It was between them. That had nothing to do with me. So they basically combined that and brought her in with the shop.
When Deanna came and joined with you and Robert, was that simply as an owner of the building or as an owner of the company?
Just of the building.
Okay. Did her coming on board
Jeffrey Wolf is watching along with us in Denver, Colorado. Jeffrey, overall defense cross, your thoughts?
Well, I think they were pretty surgical with it. I think they were sensitive to the fact that the jury probably liked her on direct, and I think that they got their big lie pointed out to the jury. They were able to show that she will not own that she said she would have him taken care of, and the fact that she would not own that and just say it was a joke, which is probably what it was, is something they're definitely going to hammer and close, and probably for the rest of the case.
And gives them the credibility now that they were potentially had lost after promising it in the open. Okay, audio's back.
To your knowledge, did any of those outside attorneys who worked with the evictions have any problems or concerns leading up to April 1st, 2019?
Not to my knowledge.
To your knowledge, were there any threats or incidents associated with any evictions prior to April 2019?
I don't believe so.
How does that eviction process go? Do you know?
Usually it's a 3-day intent to evict. So they get once it's served, then it's 3 days after that they either contact us to make arrangements, or let us know if they're moving, or it's totally that first 3 days is totally up to the resident what they want to do.
Okay.
It's their choice. What they do makes us decide what we do. I would say the majority of them come in and pay or make arrangements. And then if we have to go to court, it's usually 2 to 3 weeks before we can even get into court.
Mm-hmm. Is that again a standard statement made on cross that Robert handled the evictions?
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean that he would actually go to a location and kick a tenant out?
No, he went to court.
Okay. Where there was a judge and attorneys
Yes, and
present?
the lawyer was there and the judge was there. No, he did not go and physically remove people. That's what we have sheriffs for.
There were also some documents that were brought up to you on cross-exam and some questions about tenant files and documents that were provided to law enforcement. Had you seen any of those documents before testifying today?
You know, I can't say yes or no on it because honestly, I was in a daze, for months. I functioned. It was all I did. So I can remember some of the stuff I can't. I'm sorry.
You also made some comments indicating that maybe Deanna had provided some of those documents or somebody else.
Correct.
Why were they helping with that?
Because I was in a daze. The tenant area, but I wasn't involved in that much. I was involved in the owner part of the business, not the tenants. So my extent to the tenant was if somebody couldn't handle a tenant, I took care of them. Or if they needed to make a decision they weren't sure of, then I stepped in. But very rarely was I part of the tenant part of it.
We also talked quite a bit about Lisa Nelson on cross-exam, and you had mentioned some prior divorces. Do you know why Lisa Nelson had gotten divorced?
I want to say the first one, he left her for another woman.
Okay.
And then there was criminal activity with the second one.
So
He was in jail. Yeah.
given those prior relationships, were you surprised to hear that she was involved in an affair with Robert?
Very surprised.
It was also a little bit confusing on cross-exam, or you appeared maybe a little bit confused regarding some of these statements that were brought up. And so at one point, defense counsel had brought up a document to you when you were indicating you didn't remember making statements. So just to be clear, do you remember making any threats against Robert's life prior to his death?
No, I don't. I
Okay.
really don't.
When those documents were brought up to you, what were those documents about?
About me stating that.
So were those documents that were brought up to you a transcript of your conversation and interview with law enforcement?
To my knowledge, that's what it is.
Okay. So when you read through those documents, could you see questions posed by law enforcement and then your responses?
The only thing that caught me is I did kind of chuckle because as a joke with Robert and I, we would say, I might have said it to Robert directly as a joke, but I would have never threatened Robert's life to anyone.
Okay. So when you were looking at those documents, you could see that response that you remember and recall giving to law enforcement.
And that's very possible. Very possible.
Okay.
I just don't remember.
So again, had you said that statement, which you don't recall making, would it have been intentional?
I don't know. I don't know my mindset. You have to remember that day I was told my husband had an affair. Okay, my mind was not straight at all. And I was very angry. So I couldn't tell you. I can answer you correctly about that day.
But on the day that you were asked, had you ever made these statements before? Had you recalled ever making those statements?
Not to my knowledge. I do not I'm pretty sure I never made those statements.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Any recross?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Thank you. You may step down.
Thank you.
And unfortunately, Your Honor, just so that the record is clear, we are going to request that Ms. Fakler remain under subpoena at this time as a potential rebuttal witness.
Okay.